Good evening, everybody. You probably saw this post today from United Patriots Front claiming that Squadron 88 were planning to do anti-Semitic pamphlet dropping in Caulfield, Victoria, and of course they called it a left-wing conspiracy. They've also claimed that this guy, Glenn Anderson, is going to be behind it, and these are the sort of pamphlets that they plan on dropping, according to Sherman. And when you're leading a pack of sheep, it's not hard to get them to believe anything that you say, but this sort of thing actually really pisses me off, and I'm going to tell you why. Oh look, a Sherman groupie. Now, to explain this to you guys, I'm going to have to take you back to the 1960s. No, not the time of floral patterns, but something a little bit different. So back in the 60s and the early 70s, there was a party called the National Socialist Party of Australia, which was named after the same thing in Germany, the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or as you may better know it, the Nazi Party. Two prominent members, which you may know, were Jim Salim, who is the current chairman of the AFP, and Ross May, who you may know as the Skull. Just so we're clear, when I say AFP, I don't mean the Federal Police, I mean the Australia First Party, the same party that Sherman plans on using to join him in his little UPF rally in Melbourne. Now, as most people know, Sherman's been desperately trying to pin the neo-Nazis that you're seeing in attendance at these rallies that he's setting up and Reclaim Australia is setting up as left-wing plants. Now, this is wrong for several reasons. Now, the guy who runs Squadron 88 is known as Ross May, or the Skull, who's been a neo-Nazi for about 50 years, a lot longer than I've been alive and a lot longer than the lefty unwashed uni students, as you call them, have been alive. After the National Socialist Party fell apart, Ross and Jim created a party called National Action, which was a violent little neo-Nazi party based around white Australia policy and also stopping things like homosexuality and feminism. National Action fell apart after Jim Salim was arrested for insurance fraud and then subsequently arrested for trying to kill a black man and firebomb his house. He was convicted and sentenced and sent to prison after the court heard that he had paid two of his neo-Nazi friends $8 each to have a drink to take the nerves off before they went and shot this man's house, narrowly missing his child. He was a political refugee. One could say that they went their different ways at that point because in 1996 Jim Salim created the Australia First Party and Ross May went off and did his own thing. But they're still known to be good friends. So while Ross is still making these pamphlets that are anti-Semitic in nature, Jim Salim is still heading the Australia First Party and is actually tugging a lot of strings in regards to these rallies that you guys who are on the other side are attending, and is planning to use them to bring the uprising of his nationalistic views. And it's kind of funny if you still think this whole thing is actually about Islam, because as you can see, they've only used that as a scapegoat to try and get across their idea of white nationalism. Just an FYI, this Edward Kelly guy is actually Aaron Heaps, who's a spokesperson for the Australia First Party and used to be for the One Nation Party. That's right, along with Pauline Hanson. Calling this man a lefty plant is just beyond stupid, because even Daily Stormer, one of the most racist white supremacist websites on the internet, knows that he's not. Comes a certain level of stupidity when you have to claim that Ross May is a lefty plant, because here he is at Reclaim Australia. I think it's high time that Sherman shut his fucking mouth and realised that the people that he's actually inviting along to his rallies to try and bring up his support are actually the ones who are the National Socialists and the ones who are wanting to bring back things like white Australia policy and pretty much mimic Hitler's Germany. And for the lazy patriots who don't want to take the time to go to the Australia First Party because their cognitive dissonance is fighting with them, here you go with them talking about bringing back white Australia, and here they're talking about banning halal, kosher, saying they're politically incorrect and talking about straight pride. And I realise that he's following is mainly made up of a bunch of sheep who'll believe anything that they're told, but I mean, if you can make about 55 random lines drawn between food labelling all the way to terrorism, it's hard to see how you can't believe something that's put right in front of your face like this. And while I'm not yet convinced that this guy actually understands that he's being strung along by a bunch of ultra-nationalists to push their agenda, I do believe that this guy is fully aware, considering that he has family in Nationalist Alternative, and this guy is definitely aware because he created the Nationalist Republican Guard. I mean, let's be serious for a minute. Did none of the following of the Great Aussie Patriot or United Patriots Front realise that suddenly Islam is no longer actually something they discuss and now it's all about communists? Who hated communists more than anything? Yeah, this guy. And Blair knows damn well that the left isn't just made up of communists, but he loves to mimic the propaganda that Hitler used because, as we've all seen, he is in love with the man. And for those of you who still aren't convinced, just take a look at this photo. You probably remember this guy from the April 4 rally. He's known as Swastika Man, I suppose another lefty plant. Yeah, well, you might want to ask Neil Erickson, the guy who is helping Sherman out with the UPF movement, why he was moshing with him at a Hammerskins, that's right, a neo-Nazi concert with him a couple of years ago. Oh, and look, he still had the tattoo then. Now, for anyone who's still part of these anti-Islamic movements, the good news is it's not too late to pull out. But you're coming to your very last stop before this turns into a full-blown racist, nationalistic political party, and you'll all be drawn into it. And I don't expect Sherman to actually refute this video because, for one, he's too stupid to understand the history of fascism in Australia, and secondly, it's really hard to make up more bullshit to refute the truth. Oh, and for Neil and Blair, who are likely aware of what's going on, don't even bother trying to analyse the voice in this because I've switched around the formats and it will get you nowhere. Great, thank you.